Welcome back to another episode of the RAG Report podcast, where I bring to you every single day a bulletin show from people around the world in our industry, suppliers, advisors, recruiters, who are prepared to give their take on what's going on through the pandemic and how we can all thrive and come out of this. Today, I'm excited to be joined by two guys. I've got two of the guys from Finlay James, I think it's tech sales recruitment business, headquartered in the UK, but with an American footprint. I've got Nick Guy, the VP of North America, and I've got Gareth Fox, the VP of West Coast. Vice President, that stands for. So I hope they don't report directly reporting into Donald Trump, I believe. I've kept an eye on what these guys are doing. I know them well, and I first thought of them when shit hit the fan and thought, are they going to be able to come home? And then I saw some comms on LinkedIn about the fact they can't, and I've been dying to find out. So, guys, thanks for taking the time.
No problem.
No worries. Appreciate the invite. Yeah.
I'm going to point the first question at you, Nick. Tell us, you've been out there a bit longer, but you did move from San Francisco to New York not too long ago. So, paint the picture for the listeners. What the hell's going on for you right now?
Yeah. So I moved out from San Francisco to New York in October. I'm not really expecting any quarantine, but yeah, we're in lockdown, not too dissimilar to the UK. So I think most of the US is probably not too dissimilar to the UK. But yeah, I think things are slowing down. Yeah, everyone's just trying to stay home and stay healthy. But yeah,
where in New York? Where in New York are you?
I'm currently in Astoria, which is just the other side of the East River in Queens.
Right. Okay. And how long have you been there?
October. So moved out in October. We didn't yet have an office, which is probably a good thing, but we were close to making a couple of hires.
So is it just yourself?
Just me at the moment for FJ, yeah.
So you're flying. Where were you working? Working from home anyway?
Yeah, working from home, coffee shops, going into some of our clients were letting me use their office space, which was good. And then we had a WeWork in San Francisco, so we were able to use some of the credits to go and use that as and when I needed for meetings, and then hotel lobbies, that stuff. Yeah.
Right. Well,
wherever would have me.
Moving about, and then Gareth. So Gareth, you left Manchester to go to San Francisco not too long ago.
Yeah, August 1st, flight straight in the office the next day. So straight into it. Yeah.
So how have you found life since you got over there?
The lifestyle is different gravy. It's really, really good. In terms of obviously kind of family, etc., as you may have mentioned, it takes a couple of months to adjust, especially when you're used to being surrounded by quite a lot of friends and family on a daily and a weekly basis, or just being in an office environment with 30, 40 people, to then come to somewhere where people even struggle to understand what you're saying because you're Mancunian. Never mind, kind of your walks of life, the way you talk, the way you even do your job. It does take a couple of months to settle, and that's for sure.
So what was your job before you went?
I was divisional manager. So I was running two teams. One was focused on the US market, and one was focused on the global market. So they would pick up, the jobs with the hot clients in Europe, UK, and the US.
Yeah.
So obviously, in terms of the performance, it was really, really strong the previous year. But the heavy percentage of our revenues come from the US market.
So what was the shift? What was the reason for you making the move, Nick, and you flying out? Well, why did that happen?
So we wanted to have an office on both coasts,
yeah,
for sure. It's quite nice to follow the sun model, so that we've got people recruiting in the US, in the UK. We then have people on the East Coast, and then we'd have people on the West Coast. So for the majority of the working day, we've got people recruiting in the US. So it's quite a nice model to have. We also had a lot of clients in New York and as well as San Francisco. So having those offices at the time made sense.
Right. And what made the decision for you, Gareth? Because you've watched Nick go and do it. Why did you take that job?
Career opportunity, obviously. It's going to look lovely on my resume, and I wanted to kind of prove myself in a different market. It was kind of like starting something up again, because the revenues were good in the US. We needed to get the staff levels up, so it's good I just wanted to re-challenge myself.
So you just
and I didn't really. I mean, I had no ties in the UK, so I had no kids. I haven't yet bought property. I've just been enjoying myself and working hard. So I just thought, look, this is the kind of the next best step for me in my career.
So what when did it start becoming like common knowledge that this was going to get serious for you guys? Because I think for me, like coronavirus was everywhere. I was taking the piss saying Liverpool wouldn't win the league when coronavirus really hits, like joking, like
That's all they do.
secretly thinking, that'll be the only silver lining. But I did say that if that happens, we're all fucked. And and then about a week before we went into lockdown, the news just started in the. I don't know what was going like for you. Like it just accelerated at a pace that every minute I was getting a WhatsApp or a message like, "Have you heard about this? Canary Wharf's lockdown and all these things." I was like, "Surely not." And then I remember doing a podcast on the Wednesday, and then it was the Thursday when I was like, just no point in people going to the office. And then on the Friday was when it all got announced. So for me, it was like loads of quiet noise for ages, and then it just went bang, and it was like we're going into something here. What was it like for you?
Similar, really.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Nick. So yeah, from me, like I said, we work in a WeWork. We're on 650 California, so the office was slowly dwindling. People were moving out, giving up that kind of their office space. It was getting quieter and quieter. But I'm like to the guys, positive attitude. Stop being a soft ass. Come on, let's get in the office. It's not that serious. I was extremely naive to the situation. It's not going to beat us kind of mentality. And I think it was a Sunday afternoon, and I got a message from both the guys. One of them's like, "My parents don't want me to come in. This is serious." The other guy just like, I don't feel safe coming into the office. So I sat in the office by myself on the Monday, and I can remember it got to lunchtime, and I was literally the only person in the WeWork. And I thought, I better go and set up an office. I better set up a desk back in my apartment. So that's when it was, real for me, I would say. And then 2-3 days later, shops were getting boarded up, on Market Street, the main street of San Francisco. And that's when I thought, they know this is going to last a lot longer than what we anticipate. So that's when it really hit home for me, I would say.
What about New York?
Yeah, mine was probably the weekend before. I was due to fly to an SIA conference in Miami. I ended up flying down, but the conference was cancelled. But I found out the day before I was flying, and John and Sarah, our owners, they were mid-flight already on the way to Miami when the thing got cancelled. So at that point, I kind of thought, well, California's been hit a bit harder, or certainly at the time they've got some earlier cases, and it makes sense that the company that run it, SIA, they're based out in California. I can see why they probably don't want to leave. They probably want to be with their families in case schools get closed and all of this sort of stuff. So I flew to Miami anyway. Thought maybe it'd be a good chance to meet some people who had already found themselves there. Good chance to reconnect with John and Sarah, who I hadn't seen for certainly a few months, and get some sun. And then after that, I think it was during my time in Miami that I suddenly started. I think the head of the Port Authority in New York caught it at one of the airports, and they thought he'd got it at LaGuardia or JFK, and I'd flown out of LaGuardia, and that's when I sort of started thinking, I've got to fly back in there. Yeah. And then I think from that point, that's when it started getting serious in New York.
So New York apparently have got more cases than anywhere else in the world, haven't they?
Yeah.
What
more cases, more deaths.
Is that just down to the fact, do you think, that the amount of travel that goes through that city and the amount of people that go through it on a day-to-day basis from other parts of the world? Because there's bigger, more populated cities in the world. It's not the biggest, but it's obviously the transit through New York must be insane.
Yeah, exactly. The subway system just constantly being used. Yeah, it's I guess not too dissimilar to London, but maybe it's just been because it's quite a small city in the terms of how distant it is. It's only like 5 or 6 miles, whereas London is absolutely huge, but the population here is similar size. So it's a highly populated area, which I'm sure has sort of made the spread a little bit worse. A lot of people commute from upstate, even from other states. So you've got people that commute in from Jersey and from Connecticut. That's probably not helped.
What's the general rule then in the US? Obviously in the UK we're allowed an hour out a day to exercise, which I wouldn't say people are sticking to that. I see people every time I go out, like sitting in the parks, and they're not doing anywhere near what they were, but there's still a lot of takeaways open. Like I'll go past the kebab house and it'll be open, and you think, how are you allowed and no one else is? I don't get it. But on the whole, people are staying at home and they're not out and about. But we've not got that much freedom. What's it like where you are?
I don't think it's quite as strict here. In terms of the rules, it's social distancing and sort of rest in place is there where stay at home unless you're essential workers and that sort of stuff. But there's no sort of once a day for your exercise allowed out. There's no rules like that as long as you're at the moment. It's just practicing social distancing.
Same for you, Gareth.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I ended up coming out to a friend's 4 weeks ago in LA, just to save me being cooped in my apartment. And yeah, the streets are bare, hardly any police. It's just out and about. So I try and get out pretty much every lunchtime and then early evening, a couple of times a day, just to keep sanity. But
how did the
you hear of protests around the US where people are protesting the fact that they have to stay at home and actually going and forming these organized protests, but I've not seen any of that or heard of any of that in New York specifically. Doesn't mean it's not happening, but I've certainly not heard of it.
New York's probably, again, a more cosmopolitan place where people are like, a bit more clued up. I think there's got to be parts of the US, like the UK, where people are just like, I don't know, they're not educated on it. They're probably not reading a lot about it. They're probably just going, oh, why are we having to, we're the US, why do we have to lock down? I think it's, what was the reaction like for Finlay James in Manchester and London? How did they respond?
I mean, it was, I think with the messages that I got from my two guys, it was like, right, let's get something in place for you guys to work from home immediately. And then they started working on it in Manchester, but I'm pretty sure they were still in the office for a further week than us, if I remember rightly.
Were you all, was it like, were people on laptops and stuff, or were they all on computers in the office in Manchester?
We use laptop, then like a little desktop and a screen, so it's quite easy to work wherever you want, because we built the new office in Manchester. You can work, if you want to go and map the market in peace, you can just pick up your work and move to another room. So it's pretty good like that.
But we were following whatever the government or local authority guidelines were, is essentially what we were following in the UK, and we would have daily meetings where the leadership team and would all get together and talk about, right, okay, what sort of happened in the last 24 hours? Is there any new news that's come to light that we need to then action on? Talking about specific individuals and their situations to how we can help support them. But yeah, we were sort of following the guidelines because I guess it's an unknown for everyone. No one's been through it, so we can only sort of go for the best we can do, which was follow what the government were telling us to do.
Yeah, I think Linda, John, Sarah, James, they all smashed it, really, didn't they?
Yeah.
What one thing about you two though, because I think, look, when they lift some form of restrictions on us here, well, I'd be able to drive back to Manchester to see my mum, right, and be able to go and see my family. You guys, I don't imagine flights will be back to normal quite quick. I don't know if I'm right on that, but I imagine it'd be a bit longer before. Or would you guys want to be on the first flight back? Like, what's the plan around that for you?
It's tough, isn't it? Because it's not like we're American citizens, as you sort of mentioned. So if we come, we might be able to get out, but we might not be able to get back in. So that's the challenge. And then, do you want to leave all your stuff here, or do you want to just take all your stuff and kind of just go back and until it sort of all blows over? But it's difficult from that perspective. You might be able to go one way, but not the other. Yeah. But equally, what they're sort of saying, I was on a webinar the other day with some people from the travel industry that were on it, and they were talking about how it might reopen, and they were predicting out here that the borders would open with Canada and Mexico first, and then it would be the UK-US relationship. They would sort of put something in place about how travel and how business can continue, and once that was created, that would probably set a precedent for other countries to then replicate and follow it and that sort of stuff. But they didn't really understand, these people in the industry, they didn't understand or know what those timescales would look like.
That's crazy, isn't it? It's like, they give you little bits of information every few weeks, like, it's locked down for 3 more weeks and stuff, but there's just no clarity on anything yet, and there can't be. I don't think there can be. Yeah. What's the client base been like, Gareth? Like, how a lot of people say technology, like, is a good place to be. It's the kind of one sector that is more, like, look at the way Zoom have gone through the roof since this has happened. Yeah. Like, tech companies in some instances are going to be booming. What have you seen?
I think we went from, in the space of 3 weeks, from 350 vacancies to 44. So I think that kind of says the volume deficit we've had. But not only that, even with the clients that said they were still hiring, because they was keeping up to date with the news just as much as we were, they could say they're hiring one day, within 24 hours, that could change. So it's just a case of regular outreach. Like, you just needed to lay lay out the expectations. Look, I am going to be in touch daily, because that's how quickly the news is changing. Yeah. So we've had some clients that are, they're prepared and ready to onboard people remotely, and some are just completely not capable. And it's just, hiring freeze. We're not hiring this quarter. But we're in an epidemic. Are you mad? We're getting everything. We're getting everything every other recruiter is getting right now, I would say.
And equally, because a lot of the clients that we work with, some of them are founded in different states. So naturally, if they're American companies, they'll be taking the sort of news and advice from the local authority within that state. And then, we've got some clients that are growing out here, but they're European. So it depends on which country they're from, because a lot of that will dictate what the leadership and where the board is based will dictate what the decision is. So it's very mixed, but we've seen a huge reduction.
What type of roles are still being recruited in your space?
Sales ops.
We saw a little bit of a pivot, sales ops, trying to get the business sort of working and forecasting properly so that they know what they've got. CSM seems to still be growing as companies try to keep the revenue that they've got, maybe that they've just sold. They're trying to make sure they don't lose that, and then maybe try and grow their existing bases as much as they can. And then it depends on the specific industries. Again, if you've got a salesperson that's selling travel, probably not a good time. But if you're in cybersecurity, it might, it's a little bit of a better time as everyone looks to work remotely.
I would have thought a lot of the businesses that are funded, like big backed tech companies, would, unless, like you say, their consumer market or the client base they've got are completely on their arse. I imagine that there'd be, it'd be a good opportunity in a way, because you can gobble up some talent now, some development talent, some sales talent, potentially at a price you wouldn't normally pay, and there's a lot of people on the market. Have you seen any of that?
I've seen some that have maybe already had their funding. They've sort of continued. Some of our clients have just continued to. The plan was that we were sort of had enough cash to last us 2 or 3 years. We don't think this is going to last as long, but we're going to pause some non-essential roles. So a bit of pausing. So it depends really on the company, how their funding is, the types of roles they're looking to fill. Marketing, events marketers, they've just gone. That type of role.
Yeah, and I think obviously in terms of kind of having recent funding or even being a big global business, it's about protecting your revenues, because you still have goals and targets. I mean, I've been speaking to people in bigger companies as AWS and stuff like that, and you kind of get under the fingernail, and even they are using COVID to get rid of the deadwood to keep on revenues, and you think they'd be doing everything they could to keep hold of all talent, just to boast that they've survived and weathered the storm. But the reality is it's a chance to have a clear out too.
So what are you guys spending your days doing? Obviously keeping the phone to clients, I'm sure, but what on the candidate side, how are you able to help right now?
For me personally, we're getting so much inbound traffic, in terms of job adverts, people kind of getting referrals into you based on previous success. You've really got to be careful and use your time wisely, because we've got to try and bring in as much revenue as physically possible for the business. And obviously you've just got to kind of pick the people that you think you can do something with in the now, and the people that you think you could do something with in the short term. It's physically impossible for us to speak to everyone that comes forward to us. So I think it's just really being selective right now. As harsh as that sounds, and people on LinkedIn are probably, that's why he's not replied. But the reality is, most of the best talent has been kept and is immovable. You've just got to really keep your wits about you and use your time wisely.
Definitely. My focus is slightly different, Sean. I'm not really doing too much on the candidate side at the moment, but more making sure that the job book that we do have is accurate and up to date, and supporting James in the UK, James May, make sure that he knows which roles to be directing at and directing the consultants at. And then you're trying to bring on other new business, expanding accounts that are growing and that sort of stuff.
Sounds like it's not that different from here, really. I think there's probably a lot of people in the UK thinking, well, that the US, you hear a lot here, the US will be back by Easter. The US, like, they're going to be Trump's pushing people to go back to work. So there's probably a bit of a misconception here that there's more work going on over there, but it doesn't sound like it's massively different.
It feels like the market's not been hit as badly out here. I mean, it's relative, right? It's so relative that it's only minuscule, but the market is much bigger out here. Therefore, it doesn't feel as bad. So you can kind of pivot to go for example, if the West Coast opens up first, we'll start looking at roles over there and focusing on our time there, just because the market's so big. But yeah, the rhetoric out here from the government was that we'll be ready by Easter, and so that probably delayed the people's decisions on what they would do with hiring as well.
Yeah, if you keep listening to government advice, you'll struggle to make any decisions. What the thing that I'm really interested in now is to see how recruitment companies evolve and how they. I'd honestly think this is like having a stroke or a heart attack in human life, and if you're not fit for that, you might not come through it. If you're too overweight, you've been eating like shit stuff, you've just been, you're leveraging every part of life, you're probably not going to make it through. If it's just unfortunate and you're in a good shape, you'll probably come through. So how do you think, whether it's Finlay James or just recruiters in general, how do you think the businesses will adapt as a result of this hit?
Yeah, do you want to come back, Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in terms of how things will adapt, I mean, we've had to adapt to it pretty quickly now. I think businesses will probably become more open to the idea of remote working, but I think they'd probably need to invest in channels of being able to onboard people remotely, and I think that's where a lot of businesses are struggling. So I think there's a gap in the market there for sure. Bar that, I'm not sure.
You guys do hire that young graduate model, don't you? So
we do, and I think that would change the strategy of hiring as well moving forward.
Because if you can't have them in the office, but even if you can go back to the office, do you think you'd go back to the exact same model?
I wouldn't say exact same model, but I'm definitely an office jockey. I 100% prefer being in the office, having the banter with the team, keeping them going. Even having the luxury of a WeWork and just mingling with people. I mean, we've took on so many clients just being present in a WeWork. So yeah, I miss the office.
I think you touched on it there, Gareth. I think because everyone's got different wants and needs, and I think businesses will just become more flexible to that. So there will be in some businesses people that work in an office, and it might be that there's a new model. Instead of this sort of WeWork stuff, you actually just rent an office a couple of days a week, and some people just go in 2 days a week into the office, and you share your office with another business. Stuff like that. There could be all sorts of different ways of working as people just become more flexible, I think, to individual needs, because we've sort of seen that in some respects business can continue, and that I guess it's a trust thing, isn't it? People can be trusted, but equally there are some people that don't want to work from home, so you need to accommodate for that as well.
The age of people, really, don't you? You think, in your early mid-20s, likelihood is you live with your family or your mates or whatever. You've probably got you're going to work on the kitchen table or your bedroom. You're still up for going out and drinking. Like your lifestyle's more geared towards being in an office, isn't it? If you're in your early 30s, mid-30s, you might have a young family. You might be sick of the commute anyway. This might have given you a respite from what you're used to. I personally think there'll be two camps. There'll be you, Gareth, going, I'm a office jockey and that's what I want. And that's fine. And I think there'll be loads of people running to that going, I'm desperate to get out of the fucking house. But I think there'll be a hell of a lot that won't want to go back. And I'll go, unless you can offer me a flexible route now, I'm not interested in the old way. What about you, Nick? You're living like a digital nomad anyway, and you're cool New York lifestyle, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've done both. I've done office, working remote. I've done small office, big office, working remotely, and then sort of working from anywhere. So I think I've sort of come to this sort of part of the way I like working. It can vary day to day. Some days I am more productive if I just work from home, and others I want to get out and I want to meet a lot of people, and I want to have 4 back-to-back meetings where I'm doing nothing, and others I want to get in the office and sort of spend some time with the team. So I think it'll be varying. I'll be someone who likes that flexibility, but I think it's not going to be necessarily to do with age, because I think there's probably been a bit of a migration, certainly out of cities like New York and San Francisco, where people have gone back to the countryside, and they might be scared after this, or they just think, actually, I can live my life in a smaller town outside. I can commute to the city. It's only an hour, 2 hours away on the train, and I go when I need to. But actually, I'm going to stay out of the city now. I think you might see more of that as well. Even people, regardless of age, you'll just see people living in sort of these smaller cities as they are out here.
Yeah, I agree. What's the long-term US plan for Finlay James now? Has it changed at all? And what are you trying to achieve, Nick? What's the plan long-term?
Yeah, I mean, we just sort of changed it when we were in Miami. We'd sort of agreed upon a plan that we were going to go and execute on, and then this happened. So we were looking to open up what would have been a third office. So we were going to be opening New York, and we were due to hire, certainly at the latter stages of an interview process, for a manager to run this office out here. That's obviously been paused.
Yeah,
we were due to, and then we were in talks actually to then build another office on the West Coast. Which would be more of a satellite's the wrong word, but it wouldn't be in a major city. It would be in a sort of maybe around a college town, a bit like our sort of Didsbury office in some respects, where we get a lot of people that don't want to be in the big cities. They don't necessarily want to have to commute and pay the rents and all of that sort of stuff that comes with living in a big city. They actually want to be able to buy a house, have a car, and that sort of stuff. And we were going to open up a bit of we hadn't necessarily decided where, but Gareth had sort of been set the task to have a think, and
find LA's.
We're sort of just taking it day by day, and duck and field of the West Coast.
I stayed in 2006. I'm showing my age now. I stayed in the US for 4 months coaching football, and I lived in. I flew to Vegas. No, I flew to San Diego. Went on a drive to Vegas on the first day, and then first day in the office, and then coached football for 4 months, and I lived in 4 weeks in Vegas, 4 weeks around LA, and 4 weeks around San Diego. And have you heard of Diamond Bar? Have you been there yet? It's near the Anaheim Stadium or whatever. Like it's a funny little place. It's like Orange County, LA border. I reckon it's the ducking field of LA, mate. Want to get yourself in there.
Tiny stomping ground.
Yeah, you'll find it. How have you found the culture, like being as English as you are? How are you finding the culture?
It's you get a lot of attention. Let's put it that way. You can be in bars. As soon as you order a beer, if you're on your own or whether you've got company, head to turn. The culture is very different. I would say having the Manchester office, going in early, being the last one to leave, joining Nick in Moorgate, WeWork. We'd go he'd get me up at 5 o'clock. It was like being boot camp when I stayed with Nick. He would get up, we'd go to the gym, we'd be in Moorgate for 7:30 and leave at 8 and go for beers.
Yeah. I
genuinely believe these kind of I've managed to get the guys who are working for me, to a similar sort of work ethic. And there's a guy who works two doors down. He's called James. I genuinely believe we're probably the first in and the last in out of WeWork. So that was a huge surprise for me. It's just very much a 9 till 5 mentality out here, or 4:30 happy hour.
What about life as well, though, outside of work? So like the music, the sport, the TV, all of that. I mean, I was quite overwhelmed by it when I was there. I was like, it's just, don't know where to look. There's like stimulus everywhere. The lights, the colours, the noises. It's just like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think the sport's great. I've got really into sort of the NFL and NBA and some of the other sports as well. I like the lifestyle out here, but I think New York is a lot closer to London.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I don't
more of a
think
European mindset, innit?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, European mindset maybe. People are just certainly used to the longer hours, and that's sort of expected if you work in New York. But I mean, I've not worked in an office out here yet where I've got a team, so that could be different. It could just be what I'm seeing some of the people that I'm speaking to.
But is the plan is to build big teams when this is done? Is it to get back to headcount, grow it as you originally wanted to?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, there's no change in that plan. I think it's just almost pause. Let's take a break and sort of see what happens, what the world looks like at the other end of this, because it could be a different world, and then sort of take stock of it all and make some decisions there at that point. But it's tough to really make any decisions right now and say, yeah, the plan has changed and we want to do, this is exactly what we want to do now, because the reality is we just don't know when and what the timescales look like.
Mm. Well, look, that's all we've got time for. What I love about you two is the energy, and you can see that, like, whatever happens ain't going to phase you. You're going to keep doing it, and you're not sat out there like feeling sorry for yourself. You just, I mean, United fans probably are in general, but that's just another story. In fact, you're probably enjoying the break from the season. I think best quarter you've had in about 10 years. No, genuinely, lads, I think what you're doing is great. I think you it can't be easy, but But if you, I'll tell you what, let's catch. If we are still in this situation in a few months, let's catch back up and have another episode and see how things have progressed. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the UK going through similar things, and it's all about supporting each other now. It's about however far we are, it's about sticking together. So if anyone does want to reach out, anyone listens and fancies asking you guys questions, you're happy to speak to anyone who does want to reach out?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Give them the warts and all version of what's going on in the US. Guys, thanks so much. And everyone listening, thanks for tuning in again. We had an amazing episode live last week on the webinar. Every one of you that turned up, I hope you enjoyed it, and you're enjoying every episode. I don't ask for money when you listen to this. I ask for you to share it with someone you know. Get it out to another recruiter, another owner, even a competitor, someone who can benefit from these stories. And as I said, together every day, we share the information. We'll all benefit from it. I'll be back again tomorrow with another story, someone else's take on what's going on. But in the meantime, stay safe. I'll see you soon.